So Secretary of State Clinton has been to the Far East and back, and do you think they're off to a good start?
I don't think they're off to a bad start.
Right.
In terms of that trip.
Right.
In terms of that trip, Indonesia, a place that, I mean, clearly Obama's from there, setting up what's going to be a pretty exciting trip, I think, and the Indonesians are doing pretty well. Japan went there first. Not like her husband, overflew Japan, went to China first, leaving an island full of very unhappy Japanese, right? Sort of saying, well, Air Force One, what's going on? And when she went to China, I mean, she talked a little bit about human rights, but generally, I mean, she was focused on the economic front. If you had to make a trip to a part of the world that was going to be relatively easy for a first trip, this was a place to go.
Right.
But do I think that they are off to a good start on foreign policy? No. I think they're off to a neutral, do no harm start. I mean,
but wouldn't that make sense given the environment? In other words, as you said, you want to let the sleeping dogs lie while the important work is being done at home.
I think you can do. I think there's a danger of that because there's a difference. The global economic crisis is different from the U.S. economic crisis, and we do need to. I fully agree that the highest priority of the Obama administration needs to be to deal with the economic crisis, but that's not just the U.S. economic crisis.
Right.
And so, what is the U.S. going to do to manage the U.S.-China relationship in a holistic way?
Right.
When I see Geithner talking about currency manipulation, and I see Hillary Clinton talking about human rights, and I see the energy folks talking about climate change, I don't see a leader on China.
Right.
And at least under Bush, Lord knows they've made huge mistakes on foreign policy.
Right.
When it came to China, Paulson was in charge, and everyone else was deputized and seconded to him. Well, Geithner's not in charge on China because he's focused on the U.S. Who's in charge on China? Is anyone in charge on China? There needs to be someone in charge on China.
Right.
And I think let's leave aside the Middle East. Let's leave aside Mexico, where there's a brewing security problem. All these other things that, frankly, are more problematic in 2009 than 2008.
Right.
Leaving aside all of that, we have to get China right. And so far, the Obama administration has not shown an inclination to really
Should there be a special envoy like George Mitchell or Richard Holbrooke for China?
No, it's too important.
So why isn't, and you're saying the secretary herself is not sufficient? For
if she were clearly in charge of a new strategic economic dialogue or something that actually folded it in, but right now what we have is a multitude of very smart, interested people that aren't well coordinated on China. That is not a recipe for success.
Last question on U.S. foreign policy. It seemed to me when the administration came in, as any administration would want, fresh start vis-a-vis Russia, fresh start vis-a-vis the Middle East, fresh start vis-a-vis Iran. How are we doing there?
Is that true? I mean, I don't know.
No?
I don't know. Well, I mean, fresh start compared to the first Bush administration, but the second 4 years, do I see a difference when, when you've got Gates as the Secretary of Defense and Petraeus sort of helping to figure out what the policy is towards, South Asia, Afghan, Pakistan, Iraq. Has U.S. policy changed? I understand there's a desire to engage with the Iranians, but they're also talking about more sanctions. The Bush administration used different tone, and some of that tone was not very effective.
Right.
So certainly Obama's tone is better, but do I see a radically different policy? On North Korea, do I see a different policy? Right. What I see so far is largely leaving alone the rest of the world. And in some places where the Bush administration made big mistakes, that's an improvement. In other cases where the Bush administration actually did a reasonable job, like in China, I think that's a problem. But I don't see significant changes yet in terms of the Obama administration's foreign policy. I think we will see them when they start to focus, but I don't think we're there yet.